What's good, YouTube fam? It's your boy Tony, aka the Sender to Chaos and Controversy, and I'm gonna have another unpopular discussion, something that isn't trend worthy, but I feel that I want to touch upon this regardless, despite what people might feel or what they may think, because I feel that it's a discussion that needs to be had, and it's like many other discussions, is well and long overdue to be had regardless. Okay, but the purpose and reason for me having this discussion with you guys is because I was asked by those who I stayed with, "Hey Tony, did you hear about what's happening in South or North Dakota with the Native Americans and how they're being treated in today's climate and the abuse and the beatings that they are being subjected to?" And I said, "Nah, the curiosity has caught my attention, so of course, my knee-jerk reaction is, hey, let me go look this up." So some of the references of where to go was suggested as, hey, look under TikTok. I'll put it in the search engine, and couldn't find nothing. Um, I looked under YouTube, couldn't find anything pointing to that specific topic to be discussed, but I found other things that was interesting that I'm touch base upon and discuss because I deem it necessary to input it into this particular talk. Um, I will admit to my own ignorance when it comes to not knowing much about the various tribes or clans of the indigenous people that were already settled here in this country before it was colonized, or taken over or discovered, so to speak. Um, because we all have to be acquainted with some of these terminologies that they throw out there to, throw us off a bit, so to speak. But I've had questions when learning about certain things about American history that grabbed my curiosity. I wanted to know what part or what roles did the Native Americans play during certain time frames, like such as slavery, during the time of segregation and Jim Crow and the Civil Rights Movement, to like what we have going on today. Okay, um, and I came across a video that was interesting because you had this one Native American, and I forget what tribe he said that he was affiliated with, but I'm gonna put the link in the comment section so you guys could go check my point of reference of what I was looking at. But he brought up interesting points. He brought up a lot of the things that certain clans and certain tribes and the contributions that they've made in this country under the certain conditions of uh, uh, submitting to a society being constructed to take on the identity of what we know to be America. Okay, he talked about going through the Great Depression, um, dealing with being forcefully placed on reservations, um, how they fought in their wars, not their wars, but other people's wars, and the contributions that they've made in that area. And for every barrier or anything that was put up to discourage their development or them adapting to uh, uh, the changing of the land that they were accustomed to, that they were sovereign to. They rose above, but it wasn't without having to deal with some discouragement. On the reservation, she spoke of they had their own tribal government. It's aside and apart from the U.S. government. You know, and I know a little bit about it because, like I said, in Connecticut, where I grew up, you had the reservations in Norwich where they had Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun casinos, and they had their own tribal police. Their laws in that particular demographic doesn't coincide with the laws that we are subjected to as U.S. citizens. Okay. And he goes on to talk a little bit about that. But he also was talking about how government, referring to the U.S. government, whenever they see that you got a selective group of people that don't need the assistance from the United States government, and they are proven and shown to be worthy of standing on their own and thriving on their own, it's a problem. Some way they try to find reason to justify why they have to interfere, why they have to regulate, or come up with some bogus reasoning to say, oh, they're in violation of this or they're in violation of that. The one thing I agree with when it comes to the indigenous people, the Native Americans, you got these colonizers that come in, or should I say these settlers, or whatever you want to call them, to always want to disrupt the order of things that's already put in place, impose their ways upon other people. Say, this is how things are, this is the way it is, accept it or else. If you don't like it, leave. Kind of bold, don't you think? Kind of aggressive. That sense of entitlement that I keep referring to, you know. But people, despite how I present it, package it, and place before you guys, a lot of people support and make excuses and back it 100%. They support that conditioning, and they conveniently fail to see how wrong it is. And they try to rationalize and justify why it should be acceptable. Up until someone else comes along with that same attitude and say, hey, this is what you're going to have to now adhere to. This is what you are now going to have to conform to. Oh no, now it's a problem because it now affects you. It was cool. It was okay. It was acceptable when it was done to other people. But now that it's being done to you, oh, it's intolerable. Oh, you don't want to hear it. Nah, it's not fair. This isn't right. This goes against. But when it went against disrupting other people's cultures, compromising their sovereign right, you didn't have a problem with it. As a matter of fact, you condoned it. Okay? Another disturbing point, trying to find a point of reference to what my friend had pointed out. Came across a story that touched upon how you had these indigenous children that was converted over into Canada boarding school, and their remains, about 215 something remains, were found in that boarding school of these indigenous children. Unless you look it up, you would have never knew that this story existed. And that's just one story amongst many that talks about the atrocities or atrocities against the indigenous people or Native Americans. How you doing? I know we get so distracted when it comes to focusing solely and primarily on uh, blacks and whites and stuff that we conveniently leave out or tend not to focus on or conveniently forget about the Native Americans. They also had a fight to be looked at as being humans and not savages, because it seems like that's a loose term that's conveniently placed upon people who are different from that, are more of a nature bound culture or a group of people that worship the land and not our so-called definition of civilized societies, which is kind of funny and ironic at the same time when you think about it. Because can we really call ourselves or look at ourselves as being civilized? Honestly, they recognize the laws of the land, the natural laws of the land, not the man-made laws made by government. Because when I talk about America, the land of the free, what does that really mean? Because I know I've had this discussion with other people, and they say, well, in other countries, if you practice this particular sexuality, you're deemed to be executed. Or if you're a woman and you try to have the same type of cultured mentality as Americans somewhere else, you could be persecuted or whatever the case may be. Okay, but that's in other countries. That's on foreign land. Because before this land was colonized, before this land was settled, you already had a group of people that were free, literally free. Before there was such thing as enslavement, slavery, genocide, and any kind of horrific acts that went against humanity. But you bring that up, and it's a touchy subject. You bring that up, why you bring it up the past? You bring that up, oh, I don't want to hear about it. You bring that up, oh. But regardless of how you feel, because it makes you feel uncomfortable, what has happened has affected people, and some of those same practices are still going on even now. Okay? Why do we conveniently not talk about Native Americans? Because a lot of good points when people talk about America, the land of the free, a Native American will sit there and tell you, hey, there was a time when we can go hunting and we didn't have to have a hunting license. Okay? That was how we got our food. We can go fishing and we didn't have or be made or was it required for us to have a fishing license? We can deal with our livestock and have as much livestock as we wanted without having permits or having to violate some code or regulations that was imposed upon us. We can grow agriculture as much as we wanted until government stepped in and say, hey, you can only grow but so much agriculture. But this is the land of the free, right? See, what freedoms you look at as being convenient for you is not the same freedoms that other people know all too well what the true definition and the real meaning of freedom is. Okay? When you can go about your daily life as a sovereign person and not be subjected to the various laws and rules and ridiculousness that this country has developed to limit you to. But hey, you accepted it and you compromised for that what? Little bit of freedom. See, freedom didn't have a price when it was just the Native Americans that was already residing here. Yeah, the colonizers come in, these settlers, these people who discovered America, so to speak, and all of a sudden, freedom came with a price. Kind of contradictory, don't you think? Everything is taxed, pretty much. But hey, they said at a particular point in time, we was to be without tax. Tax should be illegal. But here we are paying taxes. Interesting. He was. I know when I say that I have my ignorance about the Native Americans, and I say this because I am ignorant, because I don't know enough as to where I should. But because people write the narratives, construct the narratives, and deem what they seem fit or necessary for you to learn, the conditioning, and conveniently leave out important or key factors of other areas in this country, or to recognize other cultures that by right they should be entitled to be acknowledged. They aren't. Except for those that are highlighted, because those are the most entertaining to subject the country to, as far as the conflicts and issues that arises that we debate about. "215 children found dead in Canada of indigenous children." And like I said, bringing that point up again, that isn't the only horror story of indigenous people that has come to light. You had many women that are raped when you have these government contracts that are placed in certain areas on how should I say should I say sovereign land or sacred land, right? But the land that's supposed to be reserved as being sacred is desecrated, tainted, poisoned, destroyed. But being that I guess the mentality that we have is, hey, it's a free for all. We can do whatever we want, even if that means being destructive. But yet, we want to sit here and focus on, oh, well, oh, look at the Black Lives Matter and look at them and Antifa and how they're going about destroying certain neighborhoods and stuff like that. But you don't talk about how the government goes and destroy lands that belong to the Native Americans, or they go in and try to regulate how they live, destroying their property. Disrupting their livelihood. Just because, hey, we're government, we can do whatever the fuck we want. You have to submit because we control you. But since we are so conditioned to dehumanize people, it's sad when you have a Native American going before the government, Congress, and saying, we aren't savages. We too are also human. It's sad you have to plead that argument to tell people that you also are human. Because it's sad to see. And you'll see the smug looks on these people's faces. Some that you are going to be familiar with when you look at the video. But we're complacent. We condone this stuff because we're too busy entertaining other trivial bullshit. See, I switched gears here a bit because when a lot of people were like, you know what, we don't want to hear no more talk about African Americans and this, that, and everything else and stuff like that. But let's talk about other areas that are affected. That we conveniently leave out because we feel that they're not applicable or can be conveniently applied to certain narratives to promote a particular agenda, so to speak. Anyway, that's all I got for today. Until next time, please like, share, and subscribe. Let me know what your thoughts are. Um, Again, I just wanted to touch. I just wanted to touch upon this because I thought about this because I did have questions more in depth and more so about the roles that Native Americans play in this country and why are they conveniently excluded from the context of this country. Anyway, y'all be safe. Peace.